First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone here, the descendants of Moses Riney. Welcome home to your ancestral home. To the artists who participated in the event. To the city leaders, members of the Preservation Society, to the press, and others. Thank you so much for being here. We're here today to honor the remarkable life of Moses Riney and the welcoming community of St. Mary and Immaculate Conception, which helped to make his remarkable life possible. With art created by members of the St. Genevieve Art Club. Just want to give a brief explanation of why I got involved. I've had some success in the past with using Facebook for good, I like to call it. One of my first endeavors was to create a Facebook page called Halfway St. Genevieve Neighbors and Friends. And the sole purpose of that was to support tourism in St. Genevieve and support the efforts of St. Genevieve becoming a national park. And the idea was that people from town and people that like St. Genevieve could like that page and ask other people to like it as well to help increase tourism. My second success, I think, my sister and my brother passed away this last decade, and I wanted to do something to honor my sister, who had a very generous spirit, and so I created something called Annie's Closet, and it's a remote closet that sits in St. Genevieve. It's outside, and anyone can leave a coat or take a coat. Then I saw the presentation that Microsoft and the members of the Sons of Veterans of the Civil War put together, and I was inspired. I read the book that Pat Weber put together, and I thought that it would be a great way to pull a bunch of different folks together. Artists, residents, family members, so that we could celebrate the remarkable life of Moses Riney. We're going to start today with a prayer from James Riney. James, if you'd like to come up.
I can do this without the mask.
Yes, please.
All right. My prayer is always in order, so will you bow your head with me as we do the Lord's Prayer, and you can do it with me, go along with me as well. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
James is a direct descendant. He's the great-grandson, is that correct? And he'll be speaking a little later as well, along with some family members, about this event. I wanted to start kind of at the beginning, and I think the beginning is the book that Pat Weber put together, and I have that here today. We study history for a couple of reasons. I think the first part is to look at what happened bad that we don't want to repeat. And the second part is to find those bright spots that maybe we can use today. Pat Weber wrote a book, and it's a genealogical book. She documented a lot of the things that she found. There's no real way to see the life of Moses, but you get a hint of it by the documentation of what was written about him. I think every generation has handed down things from the generation before, and it's the job of us all to decide what's good and what should be discarded. In her book, while researching her own ancestral history, she discovered that her family owned slaves. And she also decided to do an ancestral book for her family and for the other Riney family. She came very close to one of the descendants, and she struggled with her findings, and so she left a note on her desk as she was doing her work to remind herself of the importance of her work. And the note said, "We have to know about our past in order to fully understand her future. Her genealogical search was emotionally difficult for her as she learned that Moses' mother, Melinda, had 13 children and a daughter, Celeste, who was taken from her and sold at auction. She also found it difficult to read the price value as a slave for Moses at $900. She discovered, although not popular, at the time that Moses and his siblings were likely being taught to read by her ancestors. I spoke to her on the phone once, and she said when she dies, the first thing she's going to do in heaven is go see her husband, and then she's in the beeline to go meet Moses. And there's a picture of her in her book, and I'll make sure that's available so that you can see the picture of Pat Weber and her book. And if anyone is interested in purchasing the book and wants to get a hold of her, please see me after and I'll help you make a connection with her. Also, I wanted to point out the pictures down here that I think demonstrate St. Mary's as a welcoming place for all, and we'll have a chance to look at those later as well. The first picture that you see is Moses Riney and his family in the 19th century. And there's another photo of the main street, just to give you an idea of what it looked like in 1860. We have a pretty good idea that that's about the time frame because the Mississippi River left in 1861, 1863. The third photo is of men working together, and you can see black and white working together. And so it looked like a place that was welcoming. And the fourth picture, rather, is a church that was built in 1919 to make sure that everyone could get an education in St. Mary's at school. So I'd like to welcome, check the program, Michael Shaw.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is an honor to be here tonight. About a year ago, Greg contacted me and asked if I would like to help on a project he was putting together for Black History Month in 2021. He explained that it was about different artists doing paintings or other art forms to honor Moses Riney. Of course, I jumped at the chance. A number of years ago, while researching my own family and their ties to other families in Perry County, Missouri, I ran across the contested will of Thomas Riney. It would be the first time I learned of a man named Moses Riney. I posted his will on an ancestry site. Shortly after, was contacted by a lady named Rosemary McDaniel. Through Rosemary, I became acquainted with Pat Weber, who wrote a book that Greg was talking about. I have to say, right then and there, I knew this man, Moses Riney, had a story that needed to be told. On July 6, 2019, it was my privilege to speak at the memorial for Corporal Moses Riney. The story of Moses is one that I felt needed to be told, and while Pat Weber did an excellent job with her book, I didn't know if it really reached enough people in this community. I felt what Moses' story is truly about is understanding and faith about the will of a man who was a former slave, soldier, farmer, husband, father, and grandfather. When I looked at the 1858 tax record and saw Moses listed as being a piece of property worth $900, it made me think, what if I was a relative of Moses? What if I was Moses himself? Could I forgive this injustice? Even when he enlisted in the Union Army, his master, who was the second wife of Thomas Riney, received compensation from the government. How do you forgive all this and build a life? I ask myself if I could be such a man. As we all know, Moses made his home near St. Mary's. Later on in his life, making his home in the town itself. His children, grandchildren, were baptized in this very church. Many of them were married here. But yet I doubt if Moses ever sat in the front pew. Excuse me, I lost my spot here. Of this, even today, there will be people say, why honor this man? Of this, there's no doubt in my mind. I say to them, some of the greatest people who ever walked this earth weren't wealthy, weren't politicians, weren't generals, but rather the common men and women with very uncommon stories. I think one thing I'm most thankful for from all my studies about Moses is my friendship with his great-grandson, James Riney. James and I are a lot alike. We both believe in God. We both want the best for our families. If we're happy, we laugh and smile. If we're sad, we cry. The only difference between James and I is that skin. One thing before closing, anybody that hasn't yet read the obituary of Moses Riney needs to take the time to do so. It was written by a white man in a white-owned newspaper, and it's not just an obituary, but a tribute to a black man and citizen of this very town who made an everlasting impression on all who knew him, and even today, he leaves us with so much we can learn from. Thanks again to Greg and the artist, and all who have attended, but especially to the Riney family, for letting me help honor their ancestor, Mr. Moses Riney. Corporal Moses Riney, I salute you, not only for your service to the country, your service to the church, your service to community, but most of all, the service to your family. Corporal Moses Riney, I pray the day comes when I meet you on the other side. Now we got our first reveal, and that's by Carolyn Ball.
I'm representing the St. Genevieve Art Guild, and I first heard about this project thanks to Greg. And I'd like to express my appreciation to Greg for including us, partly because my good friend, his mom, is one of our best friends. So. And my other friends are in it too, so I wanted to be part of it. Some found this a difficult subject to interpret in art, and I certainly did. My piece ended up not being what I started with. I ended up portraying a slave, and I started with a piece of wood that I had saved. I like doing art from found objects, and this was a piece of cactus wood that I thought was very interesting. It was all gnarled. But this was not my idea. I wanted something happy. I wanted to portray Moses with his hands lifted to the heavens, praising his God for his emancipation. That's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show a happy. When I started to work on it, a lot of artists will tell you that if you're working on a piece, sometimes it has either a mind of its own or it has a spirit inside it. And in the case of this one, after several hours of frustration, I went away and came back, and I held the piece in my hand and I let it speak to me. And what it was saying was, I'm worn, I'm broken, I'm empty, and I'm hollow. And I realized that this piece was not a man exalted. This was a man in despair. And so Moses became a slave, because once I realized that, I took it all apart, sawed off the top, started completely again, and it all came together. Not only is he looking down instead of up, he's looking at his hands, which are manacled, but he's also one with the earth. And like the ground that he stands on, he can be bought and sold. And so that was message for me. And in putting it together, I used, as a matter of artistic expression, I used something called epoxy that is a type of clay that you can mold. And I tried to make it look like the wood that I was using. And so his arms and some of the fill-in pieces are actually made of an artificial substance that I then painted, and then it was varnished to all look the same. So it became something else. In doing so, I found some other pieces. I found a piece of chain, and I was looking for some manacles for him. And it turned out to be a couple of earrings that never fit me either. And I went to put them on him, and I really had a hard time. I had a very hard time, not only physically, but emotionally. It really got me. Slavery is just a horrible thing, but as a student of history, I realized that slavery's been with us for as long as we have human history, and it's been virtually everywhere. And I think to myself that had I been born at a different time, I too might have been a slave. I might have shared the fate of Moses and his wife, and had to reckon with the loss of freedom and the injustice in the world. And there, but for the grace of God, go on. Thank you. Introduce my friend Michelle Spencer. Michelle was also inspired by this story, and we're going to try the technical bits here.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, I am not as wordy as Carolyn. She is our president. I paint trees mainly, but I was inspired by this story. I'm from Crystal City, but I participate in St. Genevieve Art Guild. And my family came from St. Mary, St. Gen, and then across the river. And I also went to school with the grade school Riney, so I was moved to paint some people. Like I said, I do trees, so these are some paintings I did of the soldiers from that era, and they are watercolor. And that's it. I'm going to turn it over to Brenda. Thank you.
My name is Brenda Thompson. I was born in Brenda Mall in St. Mary, Missouri. This is my hometown. This is my home church. My family's church, your family's church. So whenever Greg I heard about the project, I decided that this is something I wanted to participate in, to honor your family, to honor this community, and to honor this church. Moses Riney. He was a Union soldier. He enlisted in the Union Army in February of 1864 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. He was mustered in on March the 8th of 1864 in St. Louis, and he was a private at that time. He served with the 68th Regiment, the United States Colored Infantry. The engagements of that infantry were the Battle of Tupelo, the Battle of Old Town Creek, the assault on and the siege of Fort Blakely, the occupation of Mobile, and the Battle of Fort Pillow. He was mustered out of the Army in 1866 in Louisiana with the rank of a corporal. This painting depicts the colored infantry of the Union Army at camp. There you go. And not only to honor the soldiers, I wanted to honor the women who were left behind and the women who came after. So the next painting is dedicated to the mothers who waited for their sons to return safely from the war. The Riney family were members of the St. Mary Immaculate Conception Parish. In 1853, the St. Mary's Seminary bought 6 acres of land from Miles Gilbert and St. Mary's Landing across from the site of his home, which is right across the street. In 1856, great church was built here for the parish mission. This is a picture that I want to do to depict the original church that sat on this spot in 1855. Somebody help me? The original church. And the reason I did the original church is because in doing research on the family, I found out that Mary and Johanna Jane Riney, the oldest daughter of Moses and Mary Riney, was born in 1870. Hers was the first recorded baptism in this church in February of 1871. On November 28, 1895, she married John Caldwell. Their son Joseph Moses Caldwell was born in 1898. By 1900, for the census, she was a widow. In 1901, she married Simon Yount. Their daughter Catherine Kitty Yount was born in 1903. Jane died in 1941, and she's buried here in St. Mary next to Simon Yount. This painting depicts a modern-style portrait interpretation of Jane Riney. And then finally, I think I can speak loud enough. Mary Louise Riney was another daughter of Moses. She was born in 1873. Her son Clarence Joseph Valentine was born in 1896. She married Thomas Brown in 1898 here in St. Mary. But by 1900, she was also a widow. She married Charles Kaufman in 1900. Louise died of pneumonia in March of 1901 and is also buried here in St. Mary. This painting depicts a vintage-style portrait interpretation of Louise Riney. And those are the paintings that I did because this project is important to me, and I do hope that it continues on. Thank you.
Since I have severe hearing loss, I always want to make sure that people can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Way in the back. When Greg mentioned the Moses Project to me, he asked if I would want to paint a portrait of Moses. He showed me the photo tintype of Moses with his family. This is the only known image of Moses. I have been searching for a person of color that I would want to paint for some time. When I saw the expression on the face of Moses, I knew this was it. Expressions tell so much about the person or the spirit within. As I painted, I thought about his life in stages. First as a slave, property of Thomas Riney, purchased at age 2, along with his mother and siblings. His assessed valuation at the age of 14 was $900. Second, having to leave his wife to become a soldier in the Civil War. Third, surviving smallpox, then fighting in 5 battles, gaining his freedom. Fourth, as a family man with Mary, fathering 13 children. Many did not survive, and that was the pain of that generation. Fifth, gaining the respect of both blacks and whites in St. Mary's. I decided to name my painting
Wow, that's
Save Me. Thinking Moses wanted to be viewed as he was. Not as everyone expected him to be, but just as he was. When I look at Moses, I see a very sensitive person that experienced a lifetime of challenges and survived with dignity. What do you see? Recently, while reading the story of Moses by Pat Weber, I became keenly aware of all that Moses and I had in common. Although many years apart, we were baptized in Perryville at the Barron's Catholic Church. We were raised in Perry County. I made my first communion there and was confirmed in the Barron Church. He probably was also. Both of us were married in that same church. Both moved to St. Mary, bought property, raised our children here. Many of our children were baptized, made their first communions, were confirmed in this very church, Immaculate Conception. Our children went to school here. Some of them were married in this same church. Thinking about what we have in common with each other and Moses can make our lives better, just as seeing and knowing about the life of Moses can. Thank you.
Great-grandchildren of Moses Riney. My father's name was Riney. His father's name was Joseph Riney. And Joseph Riney's father was Moses Riney. So I think, that it's an honor, to really be here, that you guys have honored, our grandfather. First of all, I just want to thank the Art Society, and then I want to thank the Preservation Society for Immaculate Conception Church, and the Union, Sons of the Union Army, all that had a part in honoring Moses Riney, our grandfather. I too was baptized in this church, because I was born in St. Mary's in 1946. And I was baptized in this church. I made my first communion here. I made my confirmation here as well. And it's just good to know that you guys are letting the spirit of Moses Riney live on. I can't imagine what it was living at that time, but one thing that Pat Weber pointed out in her book, or in the obituary, that he was well liked by both blacks and whites as well. And that had to be something during that time. I know we always have problems. There's always been racial problems, but to know that he was respected by all is just really something. It's just really a blessing. And so to coming together with the art people, to coming together with the union as well, that tells me something about racism today. We know it's still going on, but don't you see a progress through all of this? And I believe that God is really honored, to see this. And again, I just thank you all, for just being a part of it and letting the spirit of Moses Riney live on. And I hope this won't be the last time that we have this coming together. Now, also, there were some more relatives that were coming to speak, and I'm going to call them up, and they'll give their names and say what they have to say. I'm going to ask Rodney Underwood,
foot forward because I've been in St. Mary a long time, and tell my mom told me that who we are, where we come from, what we're supposed to represent, and everything. So, and it's a pleasure to see all the people here, and from wherever they're from. But I understand, and I hope the younger people in my life understand that we have all kinds of things to do. This, we all live in a life and not take it to anything. You know, like we're all the same people. We're all from the same place. We're all going to go to the same place. So, but anyway, it's been a pleasure for me to be here and understand who my siblings are and what they do and what we all should be doing, you know, because we are here trying to make inroads into this civilization that we call. But to stay here, see Moses, Riney, and everybody that lived in a small town, and see you come out to make Moses Riney. It really is. It really is. And I appreciate it. I'm sure Moses and Riney appreciate it. And all the people that are here in St. Genevieve, St. Mary, because I didn't know anything about St. Mary until I got way up in age and everything. So I appreciate everybody showing up. Moses appreciates everybody showing up. And to love everybody is what we need. And love is all we need. And we can get through all of it. This has been a great night. A great time. But we got a long way to go. Long way to go. So, and we think that what we do, what we say, it's great. We're all here. I want to thank everybody for being here. And if we can teach our siblings to do something that so many people left out, I don't think so. We cover the bases really good. And I want to appreciate everybody that came out. Thank you.
And we have one other member of the Randall family, Brenda Thompson. He's a great grandson.
My name is Brenda Riney, and just when I heard about this event, I did definitely want to come show support if I was able to make it, and because, you know, for people, Greg and others who were able to put this event together for Moses' grandfather, and, you know, and show all the great, beautiful presentations that we had here. They're beautiful, you know, no matter what they are, because they were done from the heart. And, you know, and for a person who's not, you know, worldly famous or anything, you know, you just, and that's a lot of care there, you know, when it wasn't called for, it wasn't necessary, but it's definitely appreciated by me and our family that are here, and those who aren't here, but are here in spirit with us, and are very grateful for what everyone has done today and tonight, and we appreciate it, and I truly appreciate it, and enjoyed being here, and thank you so much.
Wow.
I was going to give my thanks again to everyone that was here and everyone that had participated. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to who? Carl. Sure.
All right, well, I'm definitely humbled after these great stories, and it's so great to have the Riney family descendants with us. As mentioned, my name is Carl Schultz. I am a board member here in the Immaculate Conception, St. Mary's Immaculate Conception Church Preservation Society. That's a mouthful. It's a membership organization dedicated to preserve and protect this historic chapel and maintain a community of Catholic holy worship in St. Mary's, despite the fact that the Archdiocese has left this area because it's so small and not highly popular. We are super pleased and privileged to host this event in honor of Moses Riney and his family for many reasons. Most importantly, he and his family were members of our parish during our earliest days as a Catholic mission. Moses Riney's earthly remains rest here in St. Mary's Catholic Cemetery as we remember him here today in our chapel. And thanks go out to the family, absolutely. Great showing, and really appreciate you being here. It's a great honor to be able to recognize someone who is so key in the community and in a way which was never really recognized. It's a shame of our history here in the United States, I think, the number of people who are so great and made such incredible contributions. And thanks to Greg for putting this together, and our masterful community artists for staging their beautiful contributions to honor such a special man from St. Mary's, Missouri, man of courage who encountered many hardships in his life to serve and lift up his family, his community, and his country. And may God's blessing be on all the Riney family and their descendants, and all here to honor a good man, Moses Riney. And humbly, if you would like to know more about the Preservation Society's mission, services, or membership, we do have just a sheet in the back that describes a little bit about the Preservation Society, and always invite people to be involved. So thank you very much to everyone from the Preservation Society. All right, so my first talk was as a board member here. My second contribution tonight is as an alderman and a representative for the mayor. And I am here to present a proclamation from the city of St. Mary, and which I will read to you now. I'll do so quickly because you know how proclamations can be. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, and whereas cities and towns across the country are recognizing February as Black History Month to pay tribute to Black citizens who struggled with adversity to achieve full citizenship, and whereas residents of our community today and from yesteryear have played a pivotal role in defending our freedoms, our Constitution, and our liberty, and whereas many of those residents did so for honor and duty and without recognition, and whereas Moses Riney, a member of St. Mary Immaculate Conception Church, born a slave 176 years ago on January 16, 1844 in Perry County, Missouri, and who later enlisted in the Union Army at the age of 18 and returned to our community after fighting in 5 battles to defend our Union. And whereas Moses Riney, a father who retired in our township, St. Mary, and according to news reports, was liked and admired by all who lived here during that time. And whereas the city of St. Mary and our country owe a debt of gratitude to all Civil War soldiers, including the African American Civil War soldiers who may not have been recognized for their patriotism and service to the country when they returned from duty. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Carlton Wyatt, that's the mayor of St. Mary, Missouri, do hereby proclaim February 16th, 2021, in our city, on what is the 100th year of his passing, as Moses Riney Day, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our city, to thank those who serve and those who find ways to give back to their communities. Signed, Carlton Wyatt, Mayor.
Thanks, Carl. I want to take a second here and also recognize the media that are here to cover the event. I hope everyone will make themselves available if they have questions. I have Nikki here from the Daily Journal, Charles from St. John TV, Joe Hollivan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Mark Evans from the St. John Herald. And Nikki, I didn't want to mispronounce your last name. Thank you. Get situated up here. Oh, sorry, can everyone hear me? Okay, good. Just make sure I'm organized. I want to talk about another Moses, and there's a couple of aspects to that. The first one is, when this first happened, obviously we had bad weather, and then we had to push it up a week. We have COVID looming, so I'm open to the possibility of maybe doing this again next year in a bigger way where we can come together in a more normal way. Also, I ran across something and I thought it was interesting. When you grow up Catholic, often your parents give you your first name or your baptism name, and that's the name of a saint. I'm William. And ironically, I have to wonder, I don't know for sure, but there just happens to be a St. Moses called St. Moses the Black. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him. The story of St. Moses the Black. He was a desert monk, born around 330 AD. He was an Ethiopian of great physical strength and unruly character. Moses was a big man, and his enormous strength was well known. He belonged to a band of professional thieves and robbers in Egypt. Fearing death from his Ethiopian master or other criminals, Moses ran away into the desert. No regular people were there, only poor hermits with nothing worth stealing. The hermits converted Black Moses to Jesus, yet his former bad ways held on him. In order to fight harder for Jesus, Moses moved further into the desert. He was chosen for priesthood, and at his ordination, the bishop remarked to him, "Now the black man is made white." What Moses said, "Only outside, for God knows I am all black within." St. Moses, the Black Feast, the St. Moses the Black Brother feast day is August 28th. He was known for his wisdom, humility, love, non-judgment of others. Once a brother had been caught in a particular sin, and the abbot asked St. Moses to come to the church and render judgment. He came reluctantly, carrying on his back a leaking bag of sand. When he arrived, the brothers asked, "Why are you carrying such a thing?" He simply said, "This sand is my sins, which are trailing out behind me, while I go to judge the sins of another." At that reply, the brothers forgave the offender and returned to focusing on themselves rather than the sins of their brother. There's a piece of art that was commissioned called St. Moses the Black, and the artist was Kelly Lattimore. And I'm going to put this over here so that you can view it later. Also, the artists from today have given me permission to offer prints for sale as part of a donation to help the Preservation Society, and will be set up over there as well. It would have been great had we not had COVID, and we could get together and have coffee and cake and so forth. And maybe in the future again we can do that. I did want to leave you with a treat, and my nieces and nephews told me I'm pretty good at baking chocolate chip cookies. So we made them COVID style, put them in individual bags, and they'll be available at the back so that you can have a treat on your way home. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you very much, and I hope you stay and meet with the press if they have questions, and come up and take a look at the art. Thanks again. The art has life, and it's moving to another place for the rest of the month through March. It will be on display at the St. Genevieve Art Museum. I know they're open on Saturday. Carolina, they're open on Sundays as well. So I'll be giving more information regarding that.
I just want to say on behalf of the Riney family, we are very grateful that people did take their time to put this event together for Grandpa Moses Riney, especially during Black History Month. This means so much. You know, it shows the struggles of a time in the life of a person, you know, who would be, and this gives me a great sense of pride that this happened, and very happy and elated that, you know, I was able to come and support this event.
Thank you for your time. This is Riney's great-great-granddaughters. My name is Michelle Riney, and it is an honor to be here to witness this. and to see where my grandfather come from, to see where I come from. I am blessed to know this information and to be here with my son Devin, who is 3 times grandson of Moses Riney. So thank you all so very much for this. It was a privilege and an honor to be here, and I am so grateful that you guys honored my great-grandfather. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
This has been great. I loved every minute of it. I thank God for the inspiration of these artists, and I know that Moses' spirit is going to live on through what they're doing and what they're going to continue to do. And it inspired me a lot to know more about my heritage, more about my ancestors. And I just love what they're doing here. And thank God for Immaculate Conception Church, where I was baptized, where I made my first communion and my confirmation. And it's good to see that Immaculate Conception is still standing. And I hope the Preservation Society gets enough to just keep the church going. And again, I just thank him. I even thank him for the proclamation, the mayor, that was presented. It has been an honor. And I just thank everyone for being here.
Thank you for your time.